Go Gadget Copter! If those 4 words just sent you straight back to your living room floor in your pajamas, cereal bowl in hand, then you already know exactly what we're talking about today. How did Inspector Gadget actually end? Did Gadget ever catch Dr. Claw? Did Penny get even a sliver of the credit she deserved? And what about the villain we spent 3 years watching but never once got to see? The ending of Inspector Gadget is simultaneously the most satisfying and most infuriating conclusion Saturday morning cartoons ever produced. Satisfying because the formula held, infuriating because the questions that had been building since 1983 were never answered. Once you sit with that, you really can't watch the reruns the same way. The world and premise. The year was 1983. Ronald Reagan was in the White House, Return of the Jedi had just hit theaters, and every kid in America was about to fall hard for a bumbling bionic detective who somehow saved the day without ever knowing he'd done it. Inspector Gadget arrived on television and immediately carved out its own lane. Part spy thriller, part slapstick comedy, part science fiction adventure. The easiest way to describe it is that Get Smart and James Bond somehow had a kid together, and that kid had a Swiss Army knife surgically implanted into his entire body. The setting was Metroville, a gleaming, slightly futuristic city where a shadowy criminal organization called MAD was perpetually cooking up plans for global domination. What made this universe genuinely interesting, though, was that it was running 2 shows simultaneously. On the surface, you had Inspector Gadget, clumsy, clueless, relentlessly upbeat, fumbling through every mission with absolute confidence that he had everything under control. Beneath that, completely invisible to him, you had a real espionage thriller, driven by 2 far more capable heroes who did the actual work and never once complained about it. The basic loop was simple. MAD hatches a scheme, Gadget gets deployed, chaos proliferates, and the plan somehow gets foiled anyway. It was the Gilligan's Island of action cartoons. Everyone ended up exactly where they started, the status quo reset to 0, and you were happy to watch it happen all over again the following week.
Chief, I knew this lunchbox would lead me to the saboteur.
Good.
The heroes we wanted to be.
Striving, Captain. I think you're almost ready to try forward gear.
Inspector Gadget, trench coat, fedora, extendable arms, helicopter hat, and an unshakable belief in his own competence, was one of the more original heroes Saturday morning television produced in that era. He wasn't brave in any calculated sense. He wasn't clever or strategic. What made Gadget genuinely work was his optimism. The man walked directly into catastrophe and somehow walked out the other side smiling. For a kid watching on a Saturday morning, there was something almost magical about that particular brand of obliviousness. It suggested that maybe confidence was its own kind of superpower, even when it had no business being. The gadgets themselves were playground gold. Go Gadget became the incantation every kid shouted while reaching for the remote from across the couch. The extendable arms, the built-in phone, the rocket skates. Every episode introduced a new mechanical marvel that almost always misfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. But that was the whole point. The gadgets were never the solution. They were the chaos that made the real solutions possible. And then there was Brain, the loyal, long-suffering dog who disguised himself in increasingly elaborate human costumes. Hats, overcoats, fake mustaches, the works. To shadow Gadget through each mission and protect him from threats he could never perceive. Brain was the unsung hero of the whole operation, always present, always watching, never acknowledged. He shared that distinction with someone else, as it turned out.
Lead Uncle Gadget and Capey to the Metro City Art Center. That's where the possible robbery could take place.
The real hero of the show.
Real? It's a machine monster. That means someone must have built it.
Penny ran the whole operation. That's not a retrospective reinterpretation. That's just what the show was, once you watched it closely. Inspector Gadget's niece, a sharp and resourceful young girl, was arguably the most competent character in the entire series. While her uncle wandered into danger with a cheerful wave, Penny was hacking into MAD's computer systems with her book-shaped computer, tracking villains with her wrist communicator, and coordinating Brain's movements with the precision of someone running an actual field operation. She was the intelligence analyst, the tech specialist, and the field commander, all at once, all before most kids her age were doing homework. What made Penny particularly compelling wasn't just her skill set, it was her patience. She never showed frustration with Gadget. She never angled for recognition. She never pulled him aside and explained, even once, what was actually going on around him. She just quietly, methodically saved the world, episode after episode, and then stood back and let her uncle take the bow at the end of it. There's something almost poignant about that, in retrospect. A kid who was clearly extraordinary, operating entirely in the shadow of someone who had no idea she existed in that capacity. For a generation of young viewers, Penny was one of the first characters to demonstrate that the most capable person in the room isn't always the one who gets the credit, and that the person doing the real work often has no interest in making a fuss about it. That's a sophisticated idea for a Saturday morning cartoon, and the show delivered it without ever pausing to explain what it was doing. The real protagonist of Inspector Gadget was never Gadget. It was always Penny.
Gadget arrives at the scene of the final crime.
The villains we loved to hate.
Leave it to me.
Dr. Claw. The name alone still lands with a certain weight. What made him genuinely effective as a villain was the one thing the show never gave you: his face. For the entire run of the series, Dr. Claw existed as a pair of armored gloves resting on a throne, a cold metallic voice, and a sulking cat named Mad Cat draped across his lap. That was the complete picture, and somehow it was more menacing than a fully rendered villain could have been. Your imagination did the work the animators never had to. The mystery carried real weight because the threat beneath it was credible. Dr. Claw ran a global criminal organization with genuine resources. Mad deployed agents, technology, and elaborate schemes across every episode with methodical precision. His ambitions weren't small: environmental sabotage, financial manipulation, outright world domination. These weren't cartoon crimes. They were scaled to match the sprawl of a serious spy story. And every single time one of those schemes unraveled, he delivered the same furious exit line: "I'll get you next time, Gadget. Next time," before vanishing into the episode's closing seconds. Every kid on every playground mimicked that line the next morning. And underneath the fun of it, the show had quietly been building a question it had no intention of answering. Would he ever actually get him? Part 2. The Journey and Ending.
Oh no, they've started the countdown. I've got to stop.
The most memorable episodes and arcs. Every episode of Inspector Gadget ran the same essential play, and it never stopped working. Gadget receives his mission, delivered via a self-destructing message he usually manages to blow up in his own face. Deploys into the field, stumbles through a series of escalating disasters, and emerges somehow victorious, entirely unaware of what Penny and Brain were doing behind him the whole time. It was a formula as reliable as the Saturday morning schedule itself, and the show leaned into that reliability rather than fighting it. The skill was in the variations. One week, Mad had taken over a ski resort. The next, they were sabotaging a space launch or engineering a global oil shortage. Dr. Claw's operation had genuine scale, which gave the show a scope that most cartoons of that era couldn't match. These weren't petty schemes. Mad wanted everything, all of it, and the plans reflected that ambition. And then there were those moments, the ones every longtime viewer remembers, where Gadget deployed exactly the wrong gadget at precisely the right instant. The gadget coat ballooning outward just as a villain lunged. The helicopter hat activating indoors, causing exactly the distraction that saved everyone. Those weren't just comedy beats, they were the show's thesis, delivered in slapstick. Sometimes the universe rewards obliviousness. Sometimes the person who has no idea what's going on ends up looking like a genius anyway.
It's like I always say, Penny. If you can't lick 'em, join 'em.
The ongoing mission. Over 86 episodes from 1983 to 1986, Inspector Gadget built a world that felt both self-contained and somehow expansive. Each episode was its own closed adventure, but the larger conflict, Gadget and Mad locked in permanent opposition, created a thread that ran through all of it, giving the series a sense of ongoing stakes even when the individual plots reset each week. Gadget himself never changed, and that was entirely deliberate. He was the same cheerful, oblivious detective in episode 86 that he was in episode 1. There was no arc, no growth, no revelation. It was the Looney Tunes model applied to spy adventure. The character wasn't meant to evolve. He was meant to endure, to be exactly the same every time you needed him, reliable as a cartoon can be. What shifted, quietly, over the course of the series was how the audience understood Penny and Brain. The more episodes you watched, the clearer it became that the victories were theirs, that the show named after Gadget was actually powered by his niece and her dog. That slow realization is the kind of thing that lands differently depending on how old you are when you catch it. As a kid, you just watched. As an adult rewatching, you can't unsee it. The final episodes, how the story wrapped up, or didn't.
Thanks to my expert teaching, you know how to wash dishes, the walls of the Gadget house.
The last episode of Inspector Gadget, Gadget's Clean Sweep, aired on December 13, 1986. Dr. Claw's scheme. Bury Metroville under enough garbage to render the city uninhabitable and convert it into a giant dump. It's as wonderfully absurd as anything the show produced, and the execution followed the usual pattern. Gadget blundered through it, Penny and Brain quietly dismantled the operation from the background, and Metroville was saved. Dr. Claw escaped. And then he said those words one final time. "I'll get you next time, Gadget. Next time." And that was the end of the series. No resolution, no final confrontation, no callback to 3 years of built-up questions. Did Gadget ever learn what Penny and Brain had actually been doing across all those missions? Did Dr. Claw ever face any real consequence? Was MAD ever dismantled, or did it just keep running in some unnamed corner of the world? Did Penny ever get a single moment of recognition for work she'd delivered 100 times over? The answer to all of it. The show ended its production run after 86 episodes and simply walked away, without looking back or offering anything like closure.
How insidious. A sinking warehouse.
Why it ended when it did.
I guess the air conditioner is out of order. Better head home.
Inspector Gadget wrapped its original run in 1986, not because the story reached a conclusion, but because the episode order ran out. There was no written finale, no planned last chapter, no deliberate goodbye. The series reached 86 episodes and stopped, the way a lot of cartoons from that era did, not with a bow, just with silence. No one at the studio sat down to write a send-off. No one staged a final confrontation. The show that had spent 3 years building towards something just quietly stepped back from the building and let the door close on its own.
Inspector Gadget here. Yes, Chief, I'll be your...
What could have been?
Entree.
Entry? That means come in.
The episode that never happened is the one that stays with you. The one where Penny finally steps out of the shadows long enough for Gadget to really see her, not just as his niece, but as the person who's been running the actual operation. Where the self-destructing message leads somewhere final, somewhere Dr. Claw can't escape from. Where those armored gloves come off and whatever's underneath is finally visible. Where Brain gets a moment of acknowledgement for years of silent, thankless work. None of that was ever written. The fates of all 4 of them, Gadget, Penny, Brain, Dr. Claw, were left permanently open. No retirement, no justice, no earned triumph. The conflict that launched 86 adventures simply stopped producing new ones, and that familiar voice was left echoing somewhere in the space where a finale should have been. Next time. There was never a next time. There was just the end of the episode order, and then quiet. The 1983 series was the one that made you shout, "Go, go, Gadget!" at your own arm. The one that made you convinced a helicopter rotor should absolutely be hidden somewhere in your school backpack. It was also the one that, if you watched it closely enough, was quietly telling you something real about who actually does the work in this world and who tends to get the credit for it. Inspector Gadget ran for 86 episodes and wrapped up without resolving a single one of the questions it had spent 3 years building. The bumbling hero never understood what had been protecting him. The girl who saved the day every week never got her moment. The villain never got caught. The dog never got thanked. And somehow, all that unfinished business is a big part of why the show stays with you. It wasn't tidy. It didn't close the loop. It just kept going until it stopped, the same way a lot of things you loved as a kid eventually did. That's not a criticism. It's actually kind of honest. Life doesn't usually hand you a finale either. Who was your favorite, Gadget, Penny, or Brain? And which episode do you still remember most clearly? Drop it in the comments. If this brought something back for you, hit like and subscribe. There are a lot more of these stories to get into.